The night my son told me the truth, I did not cry. I did not shout. I did not ask him to explain himself twice. I just sat there, holding my teacup, feeling my hands tremble around something warm. He stood in the doorway of my kitchen like a little boy again. Not the grown man with gray at his temples. Not the husband. Not the father of two. Just my son. And when he said, "Mom, I should have told you years ago," something inside me already knew that whatever came next would change our family forever. There are moments in life when time feels soft, like it slows down out of respect. That was one of those moments. I remember the clock ticking above the stove, the smell of rice still warm on the counter, the window slightly open, letting in the cool night air. He looked tired, not physically tired, but heavy, the kind of tired that comes from carrying something too long. "I've been lying to you," he said quietly. And in that instant I realized that sometimes the truth does not break you loudly. Sometimes it arrives gently and sits beside you like an old memory. I nodded, not because I understood, but because I was ready to listen. That confession did not just change how I saw my son. It changed how I saw myself. It changed how I saw my daughter-in-law. It changed how I understood silence in our home. And it made me question the past 10 years of my life. Looking back now, I can see the signs, the small pauses, the careful smiles, the way my son avoided certain topics. But at the time, I only saw what I wanted to see. I thought our family was steady. I was wrong. I have always believed that family is something you protect quietly. You do not complain about it to strangers. You do not air your disappointments in public. You hold things together, even when they feel loose. My son Daniel was my only child. When he was born, I remember holding him and thinking, this is the only person who will ever call me mom. That thought stayed with me for a year. His father passed away when Daniel was just 12. After that, it was only the two of us. We became a small team. He would help me carry groceries. I would stay up late sewing his school uniforms. We did not talk about sadness much. We simply moved forward together. When he brought home the girl who would later become his wife, I tried to smile without fear. Her name was Anna. She was polite, soft-spoken. She held her purse tightly in her lap the first time she sat at my kitchen table. I remember asking her, "Do you like tea?" She nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am." She seemed nervous. And I remember thinking, she loves him. That is enough. When they married, I told myself that change was natural. A son must build his own home. A mother must step back with grace. So when Daniel asked if I would move into the small guest room in their new house, just for a while, I agreed. He said it would help with the baby once they started a family. I felt useful again. For the first few years, everything seemed fine. I helped cook. I folded laundry. I watched my grandchildren when Anna returned to work. We shared dinners at the same table every night. But slowly, very slowly, something shifted. Not loudly. Not suddenly. Just a change in temperature. Anna stopped sitting with me in the afternoons. She became busy more often. Daniel stayed longer at work. I told myself this was normal. Young couples need space. I did not want to be the mother-in-law who interferes. So I made myself smaller. I spent more time in my room. I kept my opinions quiet. I waited to be asked before helping. Still, there were moments that felt strange. One evening, I overheard Anna whispering sharply in the hallway. "I can't keep pretending," she said. Daniel replied in a low voice, "Just give it time." When they saw me, they smiled too quickly. I smiled back. I did not ask, because asking sometimes invites answers you are not ready for. The grandchildren grew. They loved sitting on my bed while I told them stories. Those were my happiest hours. But even then, I noticed something. Whenever Daniel entered the room, he would watch us quietly, almost like he was measuring something. Once, I asked him gently, "Are you happy, son?" He hesitated before answering, "Yes, Mom. Of course." That hesitation lasted only a second. But a mother feels even a second. Still, I chose peace over curiosity. Years passed that way, until the night he stood in my kitchen and said, "I've been lying to you. After that night in the kitchen, when Daniel said he had been lying, he did not tell me everything right away. He only said, "Mom, I need to explain something, but not tonight." Then he went upstairs. I sat there alone. The rice had grown cold. The clock kept ticking. The house felt different somehow. Not louder, not quieter, just heavier. In the days that followed, I noticed things I had ignored before. Anna avoided my eyes at breakfast. When I entered a room, conversations would pause. Not dramatically, just a small pause. Long enough for me to feel it. I began waking earlier than everyone else. I liked the silence before sunrise. It felt honest. I would sit at the kitchen table with my tea and look at the backyard. The swing set Daniel built for the children was slightly crooked. I had mentioned it once. He said, "It's fine, Mom. It holds." That sentence stayed with me. It holds. Was that how he saw everything in our home? Not perfect, just holding. One afternoon, I heard Anna on the phone. "I don't know how much longer I can do this," she said softly. There was a pause. Then she added, "It's not that she's mean. It's just, I don't feel like this is my house." My chest tightened. I went back to my room quietly. I looked around at my small space. A twin bed, a wooden dresser, a framed photo of Daniel at age 10. I had never thought of the house as mine, but maybe my presence felt larger than I realized. That night, at dinner, Anna barely spoke. Daniel tried to fill the silence. "The kids did well at school today," he said. I nodded. "That's wonderful." Anna pushed her food around her plate. No one mentioned the weather, or work, or anything real. It felt like we were actors reading lines from memory. Weeks passed. Daniel began working even later. When he came home, he looked exhausted. Not just from work, from something else. Once, I waited for him in the hallway. "Son," I said gently, "are you and Anna all right?" He smiled quickly. "Of course, Mom. We're just busy." Busy. That word became a wall. Busy meant don't ask. Busy meant don't look too closely. Busy meant stay in your lane. So I stayed quiet again. The grandchildren sensed something too. Children always do. One evening, my granddaughter asked me, "Grandma, why does Mommy look sad?" I stroked her hair. "Sometimes grown-ups carry worries," I said. She looked at me seriously. "Like you." Her question surprised me. "Why do you think I'm worried?" I asked. She shrugged. "You don't sing anymore." I used to hum while cooking. I had not noticed that I stopped. It was a Sunday. We all sat together at the table. The children were unusually quiet. Daniel cleared his throat. "Mom," he began carefully, "have you ever thought about maybe spending some time with Aunt Clara?" I blinked. "My sister?" I asked. "Yes. Maybe just for a while." Anna kept her eyes on her plate. My heart beat slowly. "I thought you wanted me here," I said. Daniel hesitated. "We do. It's just space might help." "Help what?" He did not say. Anna finally spoke. "It's hard for us to grow as a couple," she said softly. Her words were not cruel. They were careful. That almost hurt more. I nodded slowly. "I understand," I said. And I meant it. Or, at least, I wanted to mean it. That night, I lay awake. The house creaked gently. I thought about when Daniel was 12 and scared of thunderstorms. He would crawl into my bed. Now I was the one lying alone, afraid of a different kind of storm. Had I stayed too long? Had I made myself too comfortable? Or was there something deeper that I could not see? The next morning, I began folding my clothes. Not because they told me to leave, but because I could feel it coming. Daniel noticed the suitcase by my bed. "Mom, you don't have to rush," he said. "I know," I replied. But he did not tell me to stop. That silence said more than words. Anna stood in the doorway later that day. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said. "I know," I answered. And again, I meant it. She looked tired. Not angry. Not bitter. Just tired. Then she said something that stayed with me. "I just want my husband back." That sentence echoed inside my chest. My husband back. Had I taken him without realizing? I began noticing something else. Daniel and Anna argued more quietly now. Whispers behind closed doors. Once, I heard my name. Another time, I heard Anna say, "You promised." Promised what? My mind searched for answers. But Daniel did not come downstairs that night. He stayed upstairs. The next evening, he found me again in the kitchen. Just like before. He leaned against the counter. His face looked pale. "Mom," he said, voice low, "there's something you don't know." The room felt smaller. I set my teacup down carefully. "What is it?" I asked. He closed his eyes for a moment. "I never told Anna why you moved in." I felt my breath catch. "What do you mean?" He swallowed. "She thinks it was my idea. For the baby." "And it wasn't?" I asked softly. He shook his head. "It was because of me." The words hung in the air. Because of me. In that moment, I realized the tension in our house was not just about space. It was about truth. And my son had been carrying it alone. I looked at him carefully. "Daniel," I said, "what have you done?" He did not answer right away. Instead, he pulled out a chair and sat down slowly, like a man preparing to confess something he could not undo. And in his eyes, I saw fear. Not fear of anger, but fear of losing something he loved. That was when I understood. Whatever he was about to tell me was bigger than distance, bigger than discomfort. It was something that had been shaping our family from the shadows. And I was finally about to see it. Daniel sat across from me at the kitchen table. The same table where he once did homework. The same table where we celebrated birthdays. Now it felt like a place for truth. He rubbed his hands together slowly. "I didn't tell Anna the real reason you moved in," he said. I kept my voice steady. "Then tell me now." He looked at the floor. 3 months before we bought this house, I lost my job. The words were quiet, but they carried weight. I blinked. "You told me you were promoted," I said. He nodded once. That was the lie. He explained everything in slow pieces. He had been working at the company for 8 years. One morning, they called him into a meeting. By afternoon, he was unemployed. There were cuts, he said. Nothing personal. But to him, it felt personal. He had a wife. A baby on the way. A mortgage approved but not yet signed. He panicked. "I didn't want Anna to worry," he said. "I didn't want you to think I failed." So he pretended. Every morning, he left the house dressed for work. Instead of going to the office, he drove around. He applied for jobs from his laptop in parking lots. He borrowed money quietly. And when the house purchase came close, he realized he could not manage alone. That was when he came to me. "Mom," he had said at the time, "would you move in for a while? It would help with the baby." I remember how sincere he looked. I never questioned it. But now he continued. "I needed your savings," he whispered. My heart tightened. "What's savings?" I asked gently. "The money Dad left you." I felt my hands grow cold. Years ago, after my husband passed, I had received a small insurance amount. I had saved it carefully. Daniel knew about it. He had asked to borrow some, just temporarily. He told me it was for house repairs. I gave it without hesitation. "You never paid it back," I said quietly. His eyes filled with tears. I couldn't. I did not shout. I did not accuse. I simply asked, "Does Anna know?" He shook his head. "She thinks the down payment came from a bonus. A bonus that never existed. And she doesn't know you were unemployed?" He looked ashamed. "I found another job after 6 months. Lower pay." I told her it was a transfer. The lies had layered themselves. One lie protecting another. Like fragile glass stacked too high. I swallowed slowly. "So, where does Anna think I fit into all this?" I asked. He hesitated. "She thinks you wanted to move in. That you felt lonely." Lonely. The word felt strange. "I told her you insisted," he continued. "That I couldn't say no." I closed my eyes for a moment. So that was it. Anna did not see me as help. She saw me as a choice her husband made over her. A choice based on a story that wasn't true. Daniel's voice trembled. "She believes I always put you first." I opened my eyes. "And don't you?" I asked softly. He looked broken. I don't know anymore. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Not yet. Just sadness. You let her believe I forced my way into your marriage, I said quietly. He nodded. I was ashamed, Mom. I didn't want her to see me as weak. Weak. That word hurt more than anything. You think asking for help is weakness? I asked. He didn't answer. Because he knew. The kitchen felt too small. I stood up and walked to the sink. I needed to feel the cool water on my hands. All these years, I thought I was helping. I thought my presence was a gift. But in truth, I was a shield. A shield covering my son's fear. And Anna had been fighting a shadow. I've caused so much damage, Daniel whispered behind me. I turned slowly. Yes, I said honestly. You have. He flinched. But I did not say it to wound him. I said it because truth must stand without decoration. And now? I asked. He looked at me with desperation. I don't know how to fix it. That was the real confession. Not the lost job. Not the money. But the helplessness. He had built a house on half-truths. And now the foundation was cracking. In that moment, I had two choices. I could remind him of every sacrifice. I could speak about betrayal. I could cry about the money I might never see again. Or I could see the frightened boy who once hid under blankets during storms. I chose the boy. Does Anna deserve the truth? I asked. Yes, he said immediately. And are you ready to give it? He hesitated, then nodded. Yes. I took a deep breath. Then tomorrow, I said, we sit together. All three of us. His face filled with fear again. She might hate me. She already feels something is wrong. I replied gently. Truth may hurt her, but lies are hurting her more. He covered his face with his hands. I was trying to protect everyone. I walked back to the table. No, I said softly. You were protecting your pride. The word hung between us. Pride. It had cost him peace. It had cost Anna trust. And it had cost me my place in this home. The next day felt slow. Anna sensed something. She looked at Daniel carefully during breakfast. The children left for school. Silence filled the house. Daniel cleared his throat. Anna, he said, we need to talk. Her eyes moved from him to me. And in that look, I saw suspicion. I saw exhaustion. And underneath it, love. That was the only reason this conversation mattered. Because love was still there. Fragile. But present. We sat together in the living room. Sunlight touched the carpet. Daniel began speaking. His voice shook at first. He told her about the job. The months of pretending. The borrowed money. My savings. Every word landed slowly. Anna did not interrupt. She did not cry at first. She simply listened. When he finished, the room was silent. Then she asked one question. Why didn't you trust me? It was not shouted. It was whispered. And that whisper held more pain than any scream could. Daniel had no answer. Because the answer was simple. He had not trusted her strength. She turned to me. Did you know? She asked. I knew about the money, I said honestly. But not about the lies to you. Her shoulders dropped. For the first time in years, she looked at me not as a rival, but as another person caught in the same storm. I thought you wanted him to yourself, she said quietly. I felt tears finally rise in my own eyes. No, irraplia. I only wanted him safe. And in that moment, something softened. Not fixed. Not healed. But softened. That confession did not solve everything. In fact, it opened wounds that had been hidden. But it also did something else. It removed the shadow from our home. And sometimes, light hurts before it heals. The morning after the confession felt unusually still. No one rushed. No one spoke much. Even the children sensed something had shifted. They ate breakfast quietly. Daniel drove them to school. Anna stood at the sink longer than usual, her hands resting in the water. I watched her from across the kitchen. Not as an outsider. Not as a mother defending her son. But as a woman who had also once trusted a husband completely. Trust does not shatter loudly. It cracks softly, then spreads. For 3 days, the house moved gently around the truth. Daniel tried to act normal. He made coffee for Anna. He offered to cook dinner. She thanked him politely. But politeness can feel colder than anger. One evening, I found Anna sitting alone on the back steps. The sun was setting. The sky looked pale and tired. I sat beside her without speaking. After a moment, she said, "I don't know who I've been married to." Her voice was not sharp. It was lost. I answered slowly, "He is still your husband, but he is also a man who is afraid." She nodded faintly. "I would have stood beside him," she said, "if he had just let me." That sentence stayed with me, because I realized something painful. Daniel did not just hide his weakness from her. He hid her strength from himself. Inside the house, I looked at the framed pictures on the wall. Birthday candles, beach trips, smiling faces, all of them real, but layered with something invisible. I began to understand that my presence had become a reminder of secrets, of borrowed money, of pride. I did not blame Daniel entirely, and I did not blame Anna. We were all standing in the same room of misunderstanding. On the 4th morning, I folded my clothes again. This time I was certain, not out of shame, not because I was pushed, but because sometimes love means stepping away. Daniel saw the suitcase by the door. "Mom," he said, his voice tight, "you don't have to leave." I looked at him gently. "Yes, I do." Anna stood in the hallway behind him. Her eyes filled slowly. "This isn't what I wanted," she said. "I know," I answered, "but you need space to rebuild. And I need to give it." Daniel stepped forward. "You're not the problem," he insisted. "I know," I said softly. And for the first time in years, I truly meant it. Before I closed my suitcase, I opened the drawer where I kept the old envelope. Inside were the papers showing the money I had given Daniel. There was no repayment plan, no agreement, just trust. I held the papers for a long time. Then I tore them quietly, not dramatically, just small, steady pieces. Money can be earned again, but resentment grows interest. And I did not want that kind of debt between us. That afternoon, we sat together one more time at the kitchen table. The same table where everything had changed. Daniel looked at me with guilt. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," he said. "This isn't about deserve," I replied. "It's about healing." Anna reached across the table slowly. Her fingers touched mine for the first time in years. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For what?" I asked. "For thinking you were against me." I squeezed her hand gently. "I never was." In that moment, the air felt lighter. Still fragile, but honest. When it was time to leave, the children hugged me tightly. "Grandma, are you coming back?" my grandson asked. I knelt down carefully. "Yes," I said, "but not to live, just to visit." He frowned. "Why?" I smiled softly. "Because sometimes grown-ups need to fix things on their own." He seemed to accept that. Children understand more than we think. Daniel carried my suitcase to the car. He avoided looking at me directly. When he finally did, his eyes were wet. "I was so scared to tell the truth," he said. "I know," I replied. "But fear grows in darkness, not in light." He nodded slowly. "I'll repay you," he added. I shook my head gently. "You already have." He looked confused. "You told the truth." Sometimes that is the highest payment. As I drove to my sister Clara's home, I felt something unexpected. Not loneliness, not anger, peace. Not the loud kind, just a quiet understanding. My son had stumbled. My daughter-in-law had suffered. I had been misunderstood. But truth had entered the room. And truth, even when painful, clears the air. Weeks passed. Daniel and Anna began counseling. He found a better job opportunity. Not perfect, but honest. They argued sometimes. They cried sometimes. But they were finally speaking openly. I visited on Sundays. Anna greeted me with warmth. Real warmth. Not careful politeness. Once, she said something that touched me deeply. I feel like I finally have my husband back. I smiled. And I feel like I have my son back. Because the boy who once feared storms had learned something. Strength is not pretending. Strength is admitting. One afternoon, Daniel sat beside me on the porch during a visit. "Mom," he said quietly, "I thought protecting everyone meant carrying everything alone." I looked at him. "And what do you think now?" He took a slow breath. "I think protecting people means trusting them." I nodded. He had finally understood. And understanding changes a person more than punishment ever could. Fade to warm golden evening light. Our family did not become perfect. There were still awkward moments. Still reminders. But the tension was gone. Because secrets no longer lived there. Only truth. And truth has a softer voice than lies. When I look back now, I do not see betrayal first. I see fear. I see pride. I see a young husband who thought love meant being strong alone. And I see myself, a mother, who thought love meant staying no matter what. We were both wrong in small ways. Love is not staying at any cost. And love is not hiding weakness. Love is standing side by side in honesty. If my son had told the truth sooner, we would have avoided years of quiet distance. But perhaps we needed the lesson. Now, when he visits me, he does not avoid hard topics. He tells Anna when he is worried. He asks for help. And sometimes he even laughs at himself. The house feels different when I visit. Not because I am gone, but because nothing is hidden. Sometimes families are not broken by big disasters. They are bent slowly by small lies. And sometimes, healing does not come from dramatic apologies. It comes from one quiet confession at a kitchen table. The night my son told me the truth, our family almost fell apart. But instead, it began again. The first holiday after I moved out felt different. Not sad. Just different. For the first time in years, I was not in the kitchen before sunrise preparing everything. I woke up in my sister Clara's home. The sheets smelled like lavender. The house was quiet. I lay there for a moment, listening to the stillness. And I wondered how Daniel and Anna were spending the morning. Were they arguing? Were they working together? Were they learning how to stand without me in the middle? They arrived at Clara's house around noon. Daniel carried a pie. Anna brought flowers. The children ran inside shouting, "Grandma." Their hugs were the same. That comforted me. Some things had not changed. When Anna stepped inside, she paused for a moment. Then she said something small but important. "Thank you for giving us space." Not "thank you for leaving." "Thank you for giving us space." I smiled gently. "You're welcome." The air between us felt softer now. Not strained. Not guarded. Just cautious in a healthy way. Like two people learning a new dance. During lunch, Daniel spoke openly about work. He did not pretend confidence. "I'm still rebuilding," he admitted. Anna nodded. "We both are," she added. That word "both" carried weight. There was no blame in her tone. Just partnership. I noticed how Daniel looked at her now when he spoke. Not defensively. Not nervously. But directly. And when she spoke, he listened. Really listened. I had not seen that before. Later that evening, after the children were playing outside, Anna and I found ourselves alone in the kitchen again. A place where so much had happened. She washed dishes slowly. I dried them. The rhythm felt familiar. "I need to say something," she began quietly. I looked at her. "I was angry at you for a long time," she said. Even before I knew why. I nodded gently. "I felt it." She swallowed. "I thought you saw me as weak. Like I couldn't handle life without you guiding everything." Her honesty surprised me. "I never thought that," I said softly. She looked at me carefully. But he did. The words hung there. And she was right. Daniel had believed she needed protection from truth. In doing so, he had underestimated her strength. "I wish he had trusted me," she whispered. I reached for her hand. "He does now." She nodded slowly. "Yes, he does." A few weeks later, Daniel visited me alone. No children. No distractions. Just us. We sat on the small porch outside Clara's house. The sky was gray. Rain threatened but did not fall. "I've been thinking about that day," he said quietly. "The confession?" "Yes." He looked out at the street. "I thought you would hate me." I smiled faintly. Mothers don't stop loving their children that easily. He exhaled slowly. "I hated myself," he admitted. There it was. The real wound. Not the job loss. Not the money.
Shame.
I felt like I failed everyone, he continued.
You.
Anna. The kids. I listened without interrupting. Because sometimes listening is the only medicine. "You didn't fail," I said after a pause. "You stumbled." He shook his head.
No.
I hid. I nodded.
Yes.
You did. We let the silence sit between us. Then I added softly, "But hiding is something people do when they are afraid of losing love." He turned toward me. I didn't want Anna to see me differently. And now? He smiled slightly. "She says she respects me more for telling the truth. That is how it works sometimes. The thing we fear most is often the bridge we need. Trust does not return in one day. It grows in small actions." Anna began handling more of their finances openly. Daniel showed her everything.
No passwords hidden. No quiet loans.
They created a plan to repay savings slowly, even though I had torn the papers. He insisted, not because I demanded it, but because he needed to restore balance. Each month, he transferred a small amount into my account. The first time it happened, I called him. "You don't have to," I said. "Yes," he replied gently.
Ido.
Not for the money.
For his own peace.
I accepted. Because sometimes allowing someone to make things right is also an act of love. As seasons changed, I noticed something beautiful. The children grew more relaxed. The house felt lighter when I visited. There were no sudden silences when I entered a room.
No careful smiles.
Just normal family noise. One afternoon, my grandson said something simple. "Daddy doesn't get mad quiet anymore."
Mel quiet.
That was how a child described emotional distance. It made me realize how much they had felt without understanding. Children do not need full explanations. They only need stability. And stability had returned. One evening, months later, Daniel and Anna invited me for dinner. Just the three of us. After the meal, Daniel stood up. He looked nervous again. But this time it was different. "Mom," he said, "Anna, and I want you to know something." Anna reached for his hand. "We're expecting again." My heart filled. Not just with joy, with relief. Because new life means hope. They had chosen to grow again. Together. Not in fear, but in honesty. I stood and hugged them both. And in that embrace, I felt something settle inside me. We had crossed the storm. Not perfectly. Not without scars. But together. When I think about everything now, I do not remember the money first. Or the lies. I remember the moment Daniel said, "I was ashamed." Shame isolates. It convinces us that silence is safer than truth. But silence builds walls inside a home. And walls, even quiet ones, separate hearts. I learned something important through all of this. Being needed is not the same as being necessary. For years, I believed my staying proved my love. But stepping back proved it more. And Daniel learned that strength is not carrying everything alone. It is allowing others to carry it with you. Anna learned that suspicion can grow when truth is missing. And I learned that sometimes what looks like rejection is simply a family trying to breathe. The night my son confessed, I thought everything would fall apart. Instead, something else happened. We stopped pretending. And when pretending ends, healing can begin. Now, when I sit at my own small kitchen table in Clara's house, I drink my tea slowly. Sometimes Daniel calls just to talk. Sometimes Anna asks for advice. Not because she feels small, but because she feels safe. And that is the difference. Families are not destroyed by weakness. They are damaged by hidden weakness. If you are carrying something heavy tonight,
tell someone.
If you are afraid of disappointing someone you love, trust them with the truth. Because love cannot support what it cannot see. And sometimes, One quiet confession at a kitchen table can change a family forever. Some mornings, when I sit alone with my tea, I think about Daniel as a boy. He had a habit of waking early, even before the sun came up. I would hear his small footsteps on the wooden floor, a gentle patter that always made me smile. I remember one particular morning when he was about 6. The rain had come down in sheets the night before, and puddles covered the yard. He ran to the window, pressed his nose against the glass, and said,
"Mom, look."
"The world is sparkling." Even then, he found joy in small things. Even then, he reminded me that happiness can be quiet, unnoticed if you take the time to look. It is strange how we forget that as adults. We forget the small joys because life's complications, jobs, bills, fear, pride, become so loud. Sometimes it takes a crisis to remind us to listen again. I also remember the first time I saw Daniel scared of something bigger than a storm. It was the day his father died. I watched him sit at the edge of the bed, shoulders hunched, hands clasped tightly. The boy who once called the thunder fun now looked fragile. And in that moment, I realized the truth I would carry for years. Children, no matter how strong, need someone to show them how to stand again. For years, I thought I had done that. I thought moving in to help, offering my presence, was enough. But I didn't realize my presence had also been a shield. And shields, even those built with love, can cast shadows. After the confession and the rebuilding, I began to notice moments I had ignored before. Simple things like Daniel glancing at Anna before speaking, waiting for approval. Or Anna pausing at the doorway, hands lingering on the handle of the bathroom door before stepping inside. The children would sometimes look at me, eyes wide, as if trying to understand the unspoken rules of the house. One afternoon, I was folding laundry in Clara's guest room while Daniel's children played outside. The youngest, my granddaughter, asked, "Grandma, why did Daddy hide the money?" I paused. I smiled softly. "Sometimes adults make mistakes," I said, choosing my words carefully. "They hide things because they are scared. But telling the truth helps everyone heal." She nodded, thoughtful, then went back to her game. Children absorb more than we think. Weeks turned into months. Daniel began leaving notes for Anna around the house. Little reminders, "I love you. Dinner at 7. I'll take care of the kids tonight." They laughed more openly now. The arguments, when they happened, were not silent. They spoke through them. Not always perfectly, not always calmly, but they spoke. And I realized that my role in the house had changed. I was no longer the silent presence in the guest room. I was a visitor, an observer, a grandmother who could offer advice, love, and guidance, but not interference. Sometimes I stayed late after visiting. We would sit at the kitchen table together, sipping tea. The children asleep upstairs. The hum of the refrigerator in the background. Sometimes Daniel would start speaking about his childhood. Other times, Anna would share her fears. One night, Daniel said softly, "Mom, I used to think being strong meant carrying everything alone." I looked at him. "And now?" I asked. "Now I know it means sharing it," he replied.
His voice was steady.
His eyes sincere. The boy who once feared storms was learning to weather life without hiding. I felt a quiet pride, even though I could not take credit for his growth. He had chosen this path himself. I learned the true weight of love is not in grand gestures. It is in small, steady actions. Cooking a meal and sitting quietly together. Listening without interrupting. Saying "I'm sorry," even when it is hard. Showing up. Again and again. Even the children taught me patience. Watching them learn to forgive mistakes, to adjust to a new reality, reminded me that healing is not immediate. It is gentle. It is gradual. It is built with small acts of courage, honesty, and empathy. Months after my move, one afternoon Daniel and Anna invited me to the backyard for tea. The swing set Daniel had built years ago still leaned slightly. I noticed it and smiled. "Still holding up?" I asked. Daniel laughed.
"Yes."
"Just like us." Anna smiled, the first full, unguarded smile I had seen in years. She handed me a cup. Thank you for giving us space, she said softly. You helped us grow without even realizing it. I nodded quietly, my heart full. Sometimes love works best when it steps back. Now, when I think of that night, the night Daniel confessed, I do not think of the fear. I think of the relief, the new understanding, the quiet rebuilding of trust. The family I love so deeply is not perfect. There are still awkward moments. There are still disagreements. There are still small reminders of the mistakes we made. But there is honesty now. And honesty, even when uncomfortable, brings life back to a home. I know this. Love survives when fear is faced. Families heal when truth is spoken. And a single confession, gentle and heartfelt, can change everything. Even after years of silence, hiding, and misunderstanding, love finds its way back. I often sit in my room at Clara's house in the evening, long after the children have gone to sleep. The house is quiet now. Not the quiet of emptiness. Not the heavy silence of tension. But the quiet of life resting. I sip my tea slowly. The steam curls upward and disappears into the dim light. I watch the shadows dance on the walls. And I think about the nights when our home was filled with unspoken words, small silences, and invisible walls. I think about Daniel, the boy who once trembled in the night. The man who hid his fears behind lies he thought were protecting everyone. The son who needed me and, in some ways, still does. And I think about Anna, the daughter-in-law who, at first, misunderstood me, who felt threatened by my presence, who now stands firmly, not because she had to, but because she chose to. I realize now that misunderstandings do not break families. Fear does. And hiding the truth does. Some nights, I close my eyes and remember Daniel as a little boy. His small hands reaching for mine. His wide eyes looking up at the sky. The nights I held him close during thunderstorms, whispering, "It's okay. You're safe." I realized that night in the kitchen when he finally confessed, I held him the same way. Not physically, but with my heart. With my understanding. With the patience and love that he needed to finally trust. Sometimes I wonder how many of us go through life carrying secrets, not because we want to hurt anyone, but because fear convinces us it is safer to bear it alone. Months later, when I visit Daniel and Anna, I notice the little signs. Daniel now asks for help when he is overwhelmed. Anna smiles freely, no longer careful. The children laugh and speak openly around me. One afternoon, my grandson asked me, "Grandma, why did Daddy hide the truth?" I held his small hand in mine. "Sometimes adults are scared," I said softly, "but honesty makes us stronger." He nodded thoughtfully, then went back to playing. Children often understand what adults struggle to see. I have learned so many things through this experience. 1. Love does not mean staying at all costs. Sometimes stepping back is the most loving act. 2. Strength is not carrying everything alone. It is allowing others to carry part of the weight with you. 3. Fear isolates. Honesty reconnects. 4. Forgiveness is a quiet choice. Not because someone deserves it, but because your heart deserves peace. 5. Families are built on truth. Small lies may seem harmless, but they grow into walls that separate hearts. And the most important lesson of all, even after years of silence and misunderstanding, love can find its way back. It finds its way through truth, through patience, through courage. One evening, after a long visit, I helped tuck the children into bed. I whispered to them, "Sleep well. Tomorrow is a new day." Their faces lit with trust. No fear.
No suspicion.
Just comfort. Later, Daniel and Anna stood in the doorway. "Thank you," Daniel said quietly, "for staying true, for trusting us." Anna nodded. Her hand rested gently on his shoulder. "You have grown so much," she said softly. I smiled, not because I needed their praise, but because I had witnessed something rare and beautiful. A family who almost broke and found their way back together. Now, when I sit alone, I think about that night again. When Daniel finally told me the truth. When Anna listened. When silence became honest conversation. It was not dramatic. It was not sudden. It was quiet, steady, and real. That is how healing works, not with shouting, not with grand gestures, not with anger or blame, but with one quiet confession, one honest conversation, one patient act of love at a time. And for that, I am grateful. Because families are not defined by mistakes. They are defined by the courage to face them together. And sometimes, the smallest words, spoken with honesty and heart, can change everything.